I am Melissa Tosetti. I am the founder of The Savvy Life, and this is
Kevin Gibbons, Chief Operating Officer of The Savvy Life.
And we'd like to welcome you here on Caffeine TV for another broadcast talking about all things around smart spending. It's really what we talk about. That's the work that we do. And we have a couple specific topics for you today, but just as a reminder, the way Caffeine TV works is that you can just watch us. So if you are just watching us now, welcome, thank you. And the other thing that you can do is you can actually register with Caffeine TV. It's free, and that will allow you to be able to interact with us. So you'll be able to type questions at the bottom of the screen. We can see those questions immediately and respond, or you can comment, which is always fun.
And then also, if there's anything more private or personal that you want to talk about, you can send emails to us at melissa@thesavvylife.com or kevin@thesavvylife.com, and then we'll address your concerns more privately.
Yep. But that being said, so in order to register, all you need to do is there should be a little area right below where we are, and you can click on that, enter in, I think it's like 4 or 5 answers to certain questions. And then once you do that, though, just be sure to go and check your spam folder because you'll receive a confirmation email, and which you have to click on to confirm.
Yeah.
And that's where I found mine. So
yep.
Yeah, check that out. Interact with us. It's a lot of fun.
And then if you follow us through Caffeine TV, it will you'll get notified automatically every time we go live.
Oh, correct. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So just real quick, if you're joining us for the very first time, what the Savvy Life is, the best way I can describe it is that as far as our company goes, is that we are a day-to-day financial education company. And our message is that you can do the things you want to do, buy the things you want to buy, visit the places you want to visit. It's just a matter of smart spending. It's all about being purposeful. And that goes from the money that you spend, but also the way you spend your time. And you'll hear through our broadcast, read in our articles, if you've ever seen us speak, we talk a lot about, I don't even like to say time management so much as purposefulness.
Yeah, I think I would go ahead and own up to time management,
yeah.
Really, because I think that is a really important part of it. I remember when I was in school, I had the practice and the philosophy that as long as I kept the product of sleep and eating constant, I could survive, which meant that if I had to study a lot, I could go without sleep as long as I ate a lot. Mm-hmm. And if my finances as a college student got a little light, I could cut back on eating as long as I slept more. So the real point is that time is equivalent to money. And, right. I think that time management really is as critical, if not more so, than the money management. Both of them, if you don't manage it properly, you will feel the stress, you feel the fatigue. It certainly impacts you. And both of them, if you can control them properly, right. It's a much better quality of life.
Oh, yeah. Like exponentially. Yeah. I think one of the reasons why time management kind of sticks with me is like the word budget. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those words that feels like work.
Yeah, and because of all the efficiency planning and stuff, and time management is such a big deal in business, I can understand your frustration.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great systems out there for time management, but it's I think when we're trying to talk with people, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them to look at these things from a positive, mm-hmm. Enjoyment perspective versus you have to go to the grocery store at this said time, which even if you like grocery shopping might not sound pleasant if it's so structured.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head. The whole purpose really is quality of life. Mm-hmm. And just if you understand where you are, if you make purposeful decisions in as many aspects of your life as you can, then you're in control.
Yeah.
And that will make your life that much more enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's dive down that topic just a little bit more, if you will. That idea of control, that idea of time management, of money management, a big part of that comes from being conscious and making conscious money decisions. Mm-hmm. We work and live in a frenetic environment, fast-paced, like just kind of constantly on the move. And so I think one of the greatest challenges is becoming conscious, which again, that sounds like a woo-woo word, or that's an overthought idea and process. What I'm talking about consciousness, I'm talking about simply when you go to the checkout counter, you're not just swiping your card and walking out and not even realizing just how much the handy crowbar. Hello, handy crowbar. Yeah, swiping your card and not even knowing what we call it, swipe and go, not know how much you just spent, or doing the things that you've always done because you've always done it, it's habit and it's routine. And that consciousness can be very challenging to keep reminding yourself to do.
I think that you're hitting the nail on the head there. The two traps that you can avoid falling into, or that you can make the changes is reactionary living, and we can say living by habit is bad. If they're good habits, it's great because it frees your mind up to habits free your mind up to concentrate on other things. But doing things out of habit and again unconsciously, where you haven't determined that these are habits that you want to pursue, but you just fell into, I think are the two weaknesses. I think that's something that we really work to address. Is if it's a habit, make sure that it's a conscious habit that you choose to employ. And if you're doing something reactionary, what can you do to switch that around so that you're driving the choices, you're driving the action rather than letting the action drive you?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I enjoyed that rabbit hole. Thank you. All right. So one of the topics that we want to address today is around the holidays. So today is December 13th. We are really, if you think about it, we're a week and a day away from the specific holiday of the Christmas weekend happening, right? It starts the 22nd is a Saturday. So for a lot of us, that's the deadline. I know for me and my family, that's when we're going to be celebrating with one side of my family. So time's a ticking. And right about this time is when we start to panic. And right about the time we start to panic is when we start making negative spending decisions. Again, the way we spend our time, the way we spend our money. And so let me add to that. Not only does that panic start to set in, but a lot of the other thing that starts to set in are the influences of other things, right? We've got the TV is telling me that in order for my spouse to have a wonderful Christmas, there has to be a brand new car with a ribbon on top in the driveway when he wakes up in the morning. That's not happening, honey.
I don't think Paul will be that upset about it.
No, that's true. That's true. He's not a car guy anyway. So you have that, and then you have the influences of invitations that are probably coming in even more en masse. You get the idea. So how do you first of all keep from being overwhelmed and becoming Scrooge simply because you're miserable because of everything that you have to do? And then how do you make sure that if you did have your best laid plans as far as your spending plan goes for how much you're going to spend on the holiday so you do not have a holiday hangover in January, how do you keep on track? And the first thing that I would say is that today, if possible, take 10 minutes. Just figure out where you can go, 10 minutes, no distractions. In fact, I wouldn't even take your computer with you. Do this on a piece of paper where you can't get distracted by the internet, email messages, whatever that might be. And just start by writing out what still needs to be done. And I'm talking about everything from grocery shopping to the gift buying to the gift wrap. These are the things I'm thinking in my own head of.
Travel, including things like, I have to fill up gas with the car. Do I want to wait until December 22nd when everybody else is driving all over the place to go to the family to fill up my car with gas? But again, make a list.
And it sounds like, I say this all the time. I almost feel like, there's a little bit of sensitivity around, bless you, I did just Dustin, that's why we're both sneezing, about being kind of type A. But that just allows us to be able to relax, which sounds counterintuitive. But I would say I was thinking about this last night, this particular topic. One of the things that we've done for my son Dante for the last 4 years is we create a CD of his favorite songs or songs that have been kind of fun and influential and like silly stuff like his dad introduced him to the Bonanza theme song. Like the words to the Bonanza theme song are hilarious. And so that's one of the ones that'll be on this list. Well, that's not something we can go out and buy. That actually takes some time. And it's, it dawned on me yesterday, I haven't actually written that down that Paul, my husband, needs to go and do it. So it's that type of stuff. So you're going to create that list and then you're going to start to triage, meaning here's when you start to really decide what's important. And so in my family, that CD is incredibly important because we listen to those CDs all the time, just about every time that we're in the car. So we need to make sure that that gets done. That goes at the top of the list, right? And then you just start moving from there. You have anything to add to that?
Well, I think that, again, what the key is figuring out what the priorities are, like Melissa said, for the triage. And I think you were real perceptive in the idea of making sure to put Dante's CD at the top of the list. What really is important, what most people really find important, are the personal things, the family traditions, much more important than a lot of the more established, almost commercial aspects of Christmas. So really think hard on what is important to you. What are you and your family going to remember next July about this last Christmas? Or what are you going to remember next December? Oh yeah, we did that last Christmas, we want to do that again. So those are the things that you should prioritize. And if you don't get to everything, it's not a failure.
Don't beat yourself up.
Don't beat yourself up. Pick the things that are important, do those, and then move on.
There's another aspect of this I want to get to in just a moment, but before I lose this thought, I think that one of the beauties of a limited amount of time is that it does give us a chance to figure out what is the most important, what is going to be the most enjoyable. So if you can think about it from that perspective, it can make all the difference in the world for you versus, I couldn't get to everything. Well, a list can be limitless.
Sure.
Right. And if it's limitless, then it's impossible to actually execute. And then you're just going to beat yourself up. So figure out what is attainable. And part of that process is going to be the next step, which is, okay, now you've got your list. That's going to do you no good until you figure out when you're going to actually execute those things. Kevin and I are both mad crazy advocates of blocking time on your calendar. And so this is something we've talked about for years with grocery shopping. So if you find that you have a challenge in getting groceries into your house on a regular basis, it's probably because getting to the grocery store is a moving target on your calendar, or it's not on your calendar. It's just like you're trying to fit in grocery shopping around everything else when it actually should be the opposite, because you need to eat. You need to eat. So, right. So now it's the same thing, blocking out that time, because otherwise a couple things will happen. That time will get overbooked. So you'll agree to doing something that is not to your best interest right now and getting this other stuff done, or it's just too easy to grab your phone and just like, oh, I needed a couple minutes to bliss out, and then all of a sudden it's an hour later while we're reading the internet or whatever it is that we do on our phones. Yeah,
I think the other thing is, especially with the holidays, we have a really good group of friends. A fairly large group of friends, and every so often, probably about 3-4 times a year, we get together, somewhere between 8 and 20 of us, and we go do something. This does have a point. I'll circle back. Not a rabbit hole. If you have 20 people trying to do something at an event, trying to do something, and then figure out what are we going to do now, like 20 people going to Disneyland, what we learned, because we've done this several times, is we probably spend 20 to 30% of our time standing around trying to figure out what we're going to do next, chasing people as they go off and get them back together again. And Melissa and I, who are kind of like sheepdogs and herding people, get really, really frustrated that we're wasting so much of this valuable time. Circling back to the point here, at the holidays, as you get more and more critical, there's more and more things going on involving more and more people. If you don't have a plan that you're working to, then so much time is going to just get lost trying to figure out what to do, when to do it. And now of all time, you can't afford that. So make a plan, do the time block, like Melissa says, be flexible, don't be a tyrant about it, but have an idea. If you don't have an idea, you have to improvise, and that takes time and energy away from other things that you can and should be doing.
So that's actually really interesting, and it triggered a thought in that give yourself an opportunity to execute on the things you have control over, because the minute other people are involved, and we just had a wonderful experience this weekend. We went with a bunch of friends to the Great Dickens Fair, which, if you've never heard of it before, if you don't live in the San Francisco Bay Area, it is this very fun thing where they turn this big convention center into Victorian England, and we dress up and we go and we run around. Well, there was 10 of us.
10 of us.
Sorry, there was 6. No, there was
It
10
started.
of us. Yeah.
It started at 8, and then 2 people joined. It was
Yeah,
10.
yeah. So there was 10 of us, right? And same thing, we were herding kittens for most of the day, which was fine and it was fun and everything. But it's just that idea of at that point, it's a group involvement, and for us to have a good time, we need to just make sure that, and we did. We just kind of, let go, had, hit the pubs as we went along, as we were wont to do. But what could we do beforehand that we had control over in order to have a good time? And part of that was we had talked with everybody in advance that said, these are the specific things that we want to do. Again, you have control over, you should be able to have control over when you can get the grocery shopping done for the meal next week, when you can. So give yourself an opportunity to execute on the things that you can, so that when the family starts to hit, when they start arriving, then you can enjoy them.
You can enjoy. Yeah. And so what does this have to do with living a savvy life and with managing money as well? Well, it's really just a simple idea of, if you're planning for these things, you can plan and project for the cost expenditures rather than reacting to them. Rather than saying, oh shoot, I need eggnog, oh, I'll just go to the local grocery store and pay $1 or more half gallon instead of my usual store because I don't want to take the time to go do that. Or now I'm making 6 trips in my car because I keep forgetting things and I don't have time to do the shopping. If you lay out your planning, you can be more cost effective. You won't be throwing money to solve problems. I think that's what we're really talking about right here, is that as time gets tight, it's very natural to just throw money at problems to solve them. And to a large extent, you can do that. If you have enough money, you can solve a lot of problems. Yeah. But we're trying to get away from that and actually spend the money on things that are purposeful and enjoyable.
Yeah, and along that same lines, talking about quality of life, the last thing you want to do is go anywhere.
Oh,
when
December
you have,
24th.
The December 24th or last minute time. You just for as much as possible, you want to limit the, I just got to run out and go do this one thing. Those things do happen, but the more that you can plan, the less that those will happen, or the less you'll beat yourself up when they do happen.
Unfortunately, things happen, and everybody deals with those, and that's fine. But I think what we're really talking about is at least start by setting yourself up for success. You know that some unexpected things are going to happen, but just because unexpected things may happen, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a plan.
Right.
You should plan for success and then be flexible to deal with those as they come up.
That's good.
So.
Yeah. There's something specific you wanted to talk about today.
Oh, I did. I don't watch TV, but I hear on the radio an awful lot. There's a whole lot of financial organizations out there saying, here are all the things you should do before the end of the year to get your finances in order and get the tax advantages, and you should max out your 401k or max out your Roth. You should contribute your here are all the tax things you can do to stay donate to all these different charities and do all this other stuff. Just along Melissa's lines earlier. Nice number.
Hello.
Don't panic. This is not the time to be making impulsive financial decisions. You could argue maybe you should have made those earlier, but what's done is done. So do what you think is best. Certainly donate to charities if you support them. If there are easy things to do, like putting a little more money into some accounts, talk to your financial advisor, do that. But don't panic and think, oh my God, I've got to make all these changes. What's happened this year has happened, deal with it. Write down some of these things so at the start of next year, you can make plans where you have a whole year to execute, and you can do them in a rational, thoughtful manner. And in fact, early in January, we'll be doing another Caffeine TV broadcast on resolutions and how to set up and how to plan for success for meeting your goals throughout the year. Don't try and do that now. There's too many other things going on. I think that what my message is just take where you're at, do things that you want to do, especially, like I say, donate for charity, all in favor of that. Don't panic about making last minute financial decisions. They are what they are. Make a note of them so you can set yourself up in a more rational position for next year. Yeah,
and I mean, if you have the chance to sit down and actually make those decisions. By the way, my hand becomes ghostly because the light is starting to come in from the window.
I think it's kind of cool.
That's kind of crazy, kind of freaky. if you have an opportunity to be able to sit down and think them through, or talk to your financial advisor if you have one, then go ahead and do that. You're not saying ignore them.
No. I'm saying don't make panic. Don't make panic rush decisions. Don't feel the overwhelming pressure of my whole financial situation is ruined if I don't make these decisions before December 31st. You know, anything you do has some beneficial effect. That's all. Anything you do has some financial effect. I'm just saying don't panic and knee jerk. You'll have a year to plan those things out. So, you know, be thoughtful, be methodical. You'll have a whole year to figure out how to be successful.
Yeah, agreed. So. Yeah, and you know, it's an interesting thing. So one of the things that we do is we work with clients, individuals and families, and we help them to create spending plans, which you could call it a budget if you want to. We prefer to call them spending plans because it's really what they are, is they're a plan for how you want to spend your money. And a perfect example is that we were contacted a couple of months ago by a couple that wanted to create a spending plan. And understandably, they kept having to put our work together off. They've got, busy with work. They've got 4 kids. Just everything kept coming up. And then I got a email from them on Friday. They're in a panic because they want to try to get a spending plan in place before the coming year starts. Again, understandably, they're wanting to do the right thing, but it's that, like, it's getting to setting yourself up into that position where you are that panic and you're trying to. When you are in a panic mode, you do not make the right decisions. And actually, just fantastic. I was looking up videos on SMART goals, for those of you who are familiar with the idea of creating, measurable, reachable goals. And I found this fantastic interview with Charles Duhigg, who is the author of The Power of Habit. One of my oh my gosh, one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite people in the success industry. If you have not read The Power of Habit, please do, and let him know that I'm the one that told you to read it, because I told him he owes me royalties. I know I've sold more of his books than I have of our own. That being said, so there's this interview with him, and he's talking about SMART goals, and he's talking about how further on in the interview, he talked about how easy it is to make negative decisions. And very often that happens when we're like too many things are going on at once. And he talks specifically about, I need to go back and watch it again, but it was about a airplane pilot who there was catastrophic failures in the airplane, a professional pilot, and how he just, like, he went through his regiment of, okay, if this happens this, if this happens this, but what happened is everything catastrophically was going wrong. And so the usual, okay, we're going to handle this, well, then 15 other issues happened. So they couldn't keep up with what was going on. And he ended up, what he ended up doing is he actually took his hands off the controls for a minute, and he put him down on his lap, and he pulled himself out of the situation, because he realized that he wasn't working his system anymore. He was starting, because everything was going wrong, he was starting to make knee-jerk reactions, and he kind of, for lack of a better term, centered himself for a second, went back and looked at it from a different perspective. And it was, to me, it was fascinating, and I think it goes right along with what we're talking about, in that when we're rushing to make decisions, especially end of year financial ones, it can't, that's the impact on your taxes next year, or your finances next year. So it's important to do good ones. Now I'm gonna have to find that video and actually post it on Facebook. Be good. Yeah,
we're seeing. I think that that based on that story, what's refreshing is if a pilot can do that in the middle of systems falling all apart when the airplane's falling out of the sky, and do that successfully, certainly we can do that in our less critical, less adrenaline pumping aspects of our lives.
Oh my God, I love that. I absolutely love that. You know what though? So here's another rabbit hole. How do you realize that you're in that situation? Because you're not in a plane going down. I mean, in a plane going down, there's a red flag. But in that case, like, and I don't know that we know the answer right now, but maybe it is, I'll confess something to you today. So we were getting ready to do the session, and was kind of setting things up knew that we had the timeline that this was going to happen, and then had some just family business that needed to be taken care of, and all of a sudden realized it's got to get taken care of in the next couple of days. This is new stuff. We had no control over this happening. And I started to I realized I started moving differently. I started, I was getting kind of into that panic mode, and I stopped for a few seconds and was just like, you know what, if we start a few minutes late, it's not a big, like, calm the freak down.
Yeah.
But I caught myself, but I think that so often that's the hard part. And then again, that's when we're making negative spending decisions or decisions just in quality of life.
I think that you had an answer to your own question right there of how do we do that. We can, it goes back to the same thing. If you're used to making purposeful, intentional decisions about all the aspects of your life, when you stop doing that, when you start reacting, it's going to feel different. And if you just stop every so often when you're making, throughout your day, when you're making decisions and when you're doing it, taking actions, just do a gut check. Am I reacting or am I being proactive? And again, proactive is one of those woo buzzwords, but still, am I in control or are outside things controlling me? And if you stop and ask yourself that every so often, you'll know, because it'll become very obvious that, wow, I'm reacting to all these things. Anytime that you're making a lot of decisions in a very short amount of time, you should stop and ask yourself what's going on.
Yeah.
We make a lot of decisions, but we usually make them at a pace that's comfortable for us. Mm-hmm. If you're suddenly making a lot more decisions than you usually make in a 10-minute period, take a minute and say, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And then you can decide, am I reacting? Is this, and then once you make that decision, once you make that observation, then you can figure out, what do I need to do right now? How can I get things back in control? But I think that just like you caught yourself because you felt the stress, you felt the adrenaline. This isn't how I normally conduct myself. Yeah. Then that's a clue.
And it was a physical, like my husband was sitting near some papers that I needed, and I just kind of like grabbed them under him and was like, first of all, that was rude. and it was just like, oh, there's my trigger. But that comes back to that consciousness we were talking about. It's challenging. Yeah. How do you make sure that you're consciously making the spending decisions that you want to make? How do you consciously make sure that you're making the decisions on the time that you want to spend?
Yeah. If you see yourself in a store of any kind and you're just going down aisles and grabbing stuff, throwing them in your cart, that's either you're an incredibly efficient shopper with a fantastic memory and that's how you normally shop, or you might want to stop yourself and say, well, what am I doing? This is really what I want.
Or you broke the cardinal rule of grocery shopping and you went hungry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. It's real bad.
So I think if you just take a minute to be a little bit self-aware, mm-hmm. you can see a lot of those things happening.
Yeah. Some other things just to talk about, again, where it's December 13th, getting very close to the holidays. What are the other things that you can be doing just to make sure, if you're triaging your list or whatever that might be, that can help you to make sure that you're not miserable in this last stretch mm-hmm. of what the holidays are. Although I have to tell you, thanks to the retail industry, I'm just beat down by, I feel like I've been beaten with the holiday stick since July 5th.
I see. Yeah. I don't see that because I don't expose myself to as much. I don't watch TV.
Any of you have that experience?
So yeah. So two questions. One, how are you feeling overwhelmed by the advertising and by the industry? And two, what do you do to keep from falling into that panic react mm-hmm. mode? How do you keep yourselves balanced and sane in this period? Because we do this for a living. Obviously, we have some good ideas. There's people out there with a lot of great ideas, and we'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had an interesting experience. Go ahead and type in your comments, and we'll get to them as soon as we see them. But I had an interesting experience on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? When did I go? Monday. My son Dante and I went to Target to go pick up some stuff. Wanted to knock out the gift buying for my nieces and nephews. And we're going along. And so Tuesday was I'm looking at the calendar on the wall. Tuesday was the 10th. We're going along, and I was actually shocked that Target still had so much inventory. And that's when I realized so much holiday inventory, because a lot of times what happens with stores like that is that they will, all their seasonal items, they will hit a point where they do not replenish anymore.
Yep, because they want to get ready for the next thing.
Exactly, because guess what? December 23rd, they're going to be having Valentine's Day stuff out there.
Yeah.
You just watch. So I'm shocked. It's like, wow, there's still a lot of items here for us to choose from. And then I started to realize it is still early on. It is only December 10th. It isn't past the 15th. And the reason that I felt so surprised is because the retail industry, that holiday shopping area at Target has been up there for the last 2 months.
Oh.
So for me, from a kind of a peripheral experience, it felt very late in the season. Yeah. I felt like I'm behind.
You're used to a duration, and they just fooled you by extending the duration.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, granted, I was grateful that I was able to get what I wanted to get, but it was again, the retail industry we're seeing a shift in it in a lot of different ways. One is that it used to be that after the holidays, you could go in and you could just clean up as far as the bargain shopping, right? Yeah. Everything would be 50% off on December 26th. Last 2 years, we're seeing it's different. Those items are actually going on sale, deeply, deeply discounted before the holiday starts.
And then they're gone after the holidays because here's where I get a little bit nerd wonky. There's something that's gone through business, like industrial business and through the sales business, and it's called just-in-time inventory control, JIT. And what that is it used to be that industries, manufacturing plants, and shops would have a big warehouse of stuff, of all the things that they thought they would need for the next 2 weeks, because they could never tell for sure when the supply truck was going to come to resupply them. The last thing they wanted to do was run out. If you're a store, you don't want to run out of merchandise to sell. If you're a manufacturing plant, you don't want to run out of raw materials. With the advances in transportation, computer systems, and some other things, they've gotten so much better that they can schedule their inventories so that they're continuously replacing it. They shrink the size of their warehouse. Everything comes in. For a manufacturing plant, it's immediately used. For a store, it comes in the back, it's immediately put out and sold. They've got a much better handle on that. So they're controlling that much more rapidly. That lets them be more certain to say, we have just enough material to last till December 23rd, and then we're done.
Wow.
All right. So it's a technical thing. It's been in the manufacturing business for about the past 15, 20 years. Okay. And it's probably been in the commercial, like retail business for about the last 5 to 10, and it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But the end result is what you see is their stores don't have huge inventories after the holidays that they need to liquidate, because they're much more better at managing their inventories now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a very long policy. Sidetrack.
No, it's good. It's interesting. I didn't know that, but it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And actually, it's an example like Amazon, where it's changing the way that we shop. Yeah. Changing the way we shop, changing everything. Yeah. But we have here in Redwood City, California, we have robots delivering our food. DoorDash, if you're familiar with DoorDash here. So we're Redwood City. We're smack dab in the middle of Silicon Valley. We're right between San Francisco and San Jose, and a lot of things get test driven here, literally. Yeah. So, for example, for years we've been seeing Teslas out and about. Where I was talking with somebody a couple of years ago in, I think it was Kansas, and they were so shocked to see a Tesla in Kansas. It's like, oh well, we've been seeing, the
Google autonomous cars have been test driving around this area for a couple of years now. So,
yeah. So anyway, my another rabbit hole. So DoorDash, the food delivery service, they've been testing a little robot. It's adorable. And this little robot is set up so with your smartphone, when it arrives, you just plug in a code, and it will open, and your food is right there, and you take it out. And we saw it actually. My son Dante and I were walking a couple of weeks ago, and we saw it stuck. It was just sitting there. Usually it has a human because they're still testing it. Is that the one you see on the street? That is. So you're here in Redwood City.
Yep.
Yes, it's on the sidewalk. Yeah, it's just such a trippy thing to think about. But it looks like a cooler. It's white. It's got a little black top on it. But yeah, the poor little guy was abandoned. That's a
Yeah, it's freaky to see something like that going down the road, especially when there isn't a human handler with it.
Well, this is again a total sidetrack, but we were my dad had a medical procedure up here in Redwood City 2 years ago, and maybe it was last year. And they came up. I went to go visit him in the hospital, Sequoia Hospital here. And I go out to my car, and there is a freaking robot that is the security guard. And I'm talking about, it looked like a Dalek, if you're a Doctor Who fan. And it just, of course, what happened is everybody like me is sitting there taking video of it. But it would say, alert, too close, and all this stuff. So
that's the one that's associated with Stanford, isn't it?
Yeah, that one got fired because he ran over a little kid.
So the reason more data testing.
The reason that I bring all this up, though, is to, again, it comes back to the way that we spend money. Retailers are changing that. There's a lot of things that they're doing to influence us in the way that in our spending habits. They're monitoring our spending habits, and they can do that to the nth degree, analyzing our debit cards, our credit cards that have, what we've been spending, what we're surfing for on Amazon. It's crazy, and I don't mean to sound paranoid around it. It's just this make sure that you're the one that is making your spending decisions, and you're not being influenced.
And I think that's true, especially around the holiday time. Again, this goes back to our whole idea of don't panic and triage to prioritize what's important to you. It's very easy if you start to feel under pressure to just go on to Amazon or the Target online site or any of those and just start madly buying things. Quick, I need to spend money on stuff to buy people on these. Stop, take a breath. What do you really need to get these people? How do you want to spend your time and money this season, both for yourself and for others? And don't just react.
Yeah. Do we have a few more minutes to talk? Actually, one of the this is the perfect time to talk about some of the traps around holiday spending. And one of them, I had a trigger for the trap when I was shopping for my nieces and nephews on Thursday or Monday, and I did not fall into it. And I was very proud of myself. Because, by the way, human.
It's very easy for us to preach, and then you put the right stimulus in front of us, and we're just like anybody, any other rat hitting the lever in the cage. So,
Sorry. That's funny. It's that idea again. When we get super busy, or we are just kind of thinking of something else when we should be supposed to be making spending decisions, it's easy to fall into those traps or make the wrong spending decision. So I am buying gifts for my nieces and nephews, and I knew exactly what I wanted to get my niece. And if you're watching this, Chloe, you'll see on Saturday when I give it to you. But and that was a special something, but it just happened to be a little less than what I was getting for my nephews. And I had that moment where I was like, I should get her something else too. And it's like, no, it's the gift. It is the gift. That is the intention. And it's what she wanted. And one of the things that she asked for. And I know that she's going to thoroughly enjoy it. And she actually may enjoy it more than what I got my nephews. So there you go.
So this kind of goes back to the whole idea of how do you catch yourself when you're reacting, when you're not. What was the trigger for you that made you say, oh, I see that one, besides the fact that we talk about it?
Well, that's a big part of it. Is I talk about a couple times a year when we're doing the holidays webinar or the presentation that we give on it, that we talk about that particular experience. It was actually it was at Target, and it was seeing the dollar amount and then knowing the dollar amount that I was spending otherwise, and just seeing the difference. And so it was just it was that awareness. And so granted, for me, that's something like prices and stuff is something that I'm very interested in. I realize not everybody knows the price of a can of corn at Safeway versus Winco in Fresno, California. That's my gift.
We all have our weird hobbies.
Yeah, we all have our hobbies, right? I totally get that. So you would have to figure out what that would look like. The other thing too, though, that I think helped in retrospect is that when I create my gift list, in order for me to be able to spend within what I have allotted. And I want to, one thing about that really quickly before I go finish this thought. When I create my budget, if you will, or my spending plan for gift giving, I know how much I have available to spend, and then I basically kind of break down what I think each gift is going to, I should spend on each gift. And then I adjust from there. But one of the reasons why it's very important to create a spending plan is because the minute that you start to feel uncomfortable about spending on gifts, it shifts the emotion around giving that gift.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And that's bad.
Yeah.
That is something that you don't want. When you give somebody a gift, you want to feel so good and so happy about it. You don't want to feel obligated, manipulated, whatever that might be. And that's on us.
Yep.
That is really on us. And so it's not just about doing right by your money, but it's about being able to give with the best of intentions. And then again, that's the idea of savvy living, goes back to quality of life, having that ghost experience with my hand again. So what happens is I have my list of everybody that I need to buy for, have that guesstimate, and then what I do is I create as I'm going along, when I get done shopping, I just go home and write out how much I actually spent.
Okay.
And in most cases, I'm able to buy underneath what I anticipate, and so that gives me a surplus for those other gifts, which actually is a benefit to me, because very often the last gifts that we are struggling to buy, sometimes it's because you feel the need to spend a little bit more, and that gives you that ability to do that.
Yeah. While staying within your targeted spending, exactly. I think that's a real key, because that gift giving, again, we talked about this in a couple of our different webinars. Gift giving, it's very easy to just get caught up in what you're doing and completely blow your plan. And just you have a good idea. You said, I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on gifts this season, and you put that number away. Maybe remember the total, and then you just start spending. And then in January, maybe you go back and look and go, oh wow, I didn't really do that. Yeah. So I think what you're talking about of saying, here's my goal for my allotment. Here's how much I expect I'm going to spend on each people. And I think that what you said actually is key, is you don't frame it in terms of how much money is this person worth versus how much money is this person worth. It's like, what does this person want? What am I going to get this person? Here's what I think it's going to cost. And then you've gone down, and then you make sure that things line up properly. And if you're able to get a better deal, like you say, then you have that surplus, so that if you want to spend more for something else, for somebody else, or change some things around, you have that flexibility. Or you have the satisfaction of saying, wow, I came in $20 underneath my budget. That's I can feel good about what I did. I got people things that they liked, that I feel good about giving, and I stuck to my plan. Yeah,
and if you want, then you could go spend that money on something that you saw. And actually, that's an article we wrote, or a Facebook post we wrote about this week, which was the idea of as you shop, it's very likely that you're going to see stuff that you want for yourself, and that's great, and that's awesome. But instead of going ahead and pulling the trigger on those items, you might want to consider creating adding those items to your spending book. For those of you that are not aware, a spending book is simply a little notebook that you can keep with you at all times, or you can use an app on your phone. A lot of folks use Evernote, also based here in Redwood City. And it's just simply you're writing down the things that you want to buy. There's a purposefulness to it, right? And so if you write down, if something catches your eye, you write it down in your spending book to purchase at a later time. The one thing that will help is it's quite likely now that purchase that you're going to make for yourself isn't going to negatively impact your spending on gifts, right? You're able to continue to spend on gifts. The other thing, though, is it's possible that item is going to be at a better price in like a week. So, and it just, again, it gives you that opportunity to be, to think through the purchases that you want to make. Big piece of savvy living is you do not want anything coming into your home that is not something that you use or that you absolutely love. And that's a challenge. That is a challenge. That is a daily, I don't want to say battle because it sounds so negative, but it's amazing how things creep into our homes, whether we're buying them or sneaking in the middle of the night.
When I was a lot younger and didn't have possessions and had a whole lot of free space in my living accommodations at the time, my friends and I would go, we would be bored, we'd go shopping to weird stores and start buying stuff because it was cool. It's like, oh, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. And all that stuff ended up in our shared apartment, and we lived together for 2-3 years, I guess. And by the end of that 3 years, the place was full, but it was full of junk. There were probably like 2 or 3 things each person had that was actually like worth keeping, good quality. Most of it was stuff that was kind of funny and that was kind of cool. And, it didn't cost a huge amount of money, but still the house was full of junk. And so then when we all moved out, we had to get rid of that stuff, and we threw most of it away.
It became a burden.
Yeah. So as I've gotten older and wiser and more indoctrinated by Melissa, the whole idea that before you let something into your house, it's something that you need, you absolutely love.
Yeah.
And writing it down, that I think what that does is it gives you a chance to have your temperament cool a little bit. Just, you get very excited in the holidays, especially like Melissa said, we're getting inundated with all this advertising. We're going to fall prey to that. It's human nature. The people who do this are professionals. But this gives you a chance to let that enthusiasm kind of recalibrate a little bit, and you come back a week or two later. I really thought I wanted this. How do I feel about that now? Now that the holiday season is over and I can approach things with a little bit more of a saner mind. Do I still want it? And if you do, great. And if you do it, you can afford it, go get it. But you have the time now to let that sink in.
And for those of you that this concept of a spending book is new, I'll dive a little bit deeper into it, because this is really one of the most powerful tools. This is this is just a notebook. This is not my actual spending book. It's just handy. But the idea of it is that, you're going to write down the things that you want to buy, and you can be very specific about that. One of the presentations that we do is on the savvy, is on the savvy wardrobe. And it's that idea of getting rid of everything in your closet that's not working for you and becoming very purposeful about building a wardrobe of specific clothes that can be worn with each other. It's again, purposefulness. And a big part of that, though, is knowing what you need in your closet, right? Because a lot of times we have stuff that we can't wear because we don't have the item that we need to be able to wear it. And so that's when you're writing that stuff down. So you can list the clothes that you want to buy and be very specific about it. You can list the things that you want for your home. For example that I always give is a couple years ago when my son Dante was like 3 or 4, Kevin bought him a beautiful pirate map. And we wanted to get it framed because we didn't want it to get ruined. It's beautiful. So we went out and in my spending book, I wrote the frame, but I also wrote the dimensions of the frame. So the details of the purchases that you want to make can help you pull the trigger when you're at the store versus like standing there looking at all these frames and realizing
I don't know what size I need. I need to
get. Yeah. And then on top of that, so you get the idea of the purchases that you want to make. But what I also love using my spending book for is to write down the experiences that I want to have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting together in one place. Basically, the way I look at it is I'm being intentional about the life I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
What are the wineries I want to visit the next time we go to Healdsburg to, go see my father-in-law when actually dropping the kid off and going wine tasting, or restaurants that I hear about, right? I want to be, when you're hungry, you're never in a million years going to remember that new restaurant that Kevin was telling us about that Paul and I want to go to.
And I think that for me, that's a big one. For that very reason, we try not to go out as often. My wife and I try not to go out as often as we used to. I still, admittedly, go out more than a lot of other people, but I really like good food. But having that in the book of these are the new restaurants that we want to go try is essential, because you're absolutely right. The day of the when you're going out to eat is not the time to decide where you're going to go and try and remember all those places that you had heard about on different reviews or news articles or whatever. So having that written down just so you have a ready reference of I want to go do something, I want to spend my money purposefully. That really helps.
Yeah,
I think that's really key.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's live the life you want, but figure out what it is that you want. And I think that this also allows you to triage too, because if your list is really, really long, that's great, but it's going to give you a chance to see it all. And then you can start to pick and choose which ones you want to do first, right? And then go from there. Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on today?
No, I don't know. I think that we should probably let people know when we're going to do this again. And we're both looking at the same calendar. So
I'm saying January 3rd. We really should have done this before we went live.
Well, that's okay. So either the 3rd or the 10th.
I'd like to do the third just
Okay.
because I
We want to
think
get
that,
in a rhythm.
well, we want to get in the rhythm. The other reason too is that's when people are primed. We do the majority of our business in January because we're talking about money,
New Year's resolutions,
smart,
and all that.
smart spending, and you know it's a season, and that's I'd like to be able to give as much information to those that are interested as early as possible.
So join us again at noon Pacific time on January 3rd, and we'll be talking about how to set up, how to be successful to achieve resolutions.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about habits. We'll talk a lot about Mr. Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. Actually, if you get a chance, read it between now and then. And then, again, don't forget to tell them I sent you. All right, everybody. Happy holidays. Enjoy the rest of 2018.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.